And go, Jason.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of Spilling Ink. I say that every time I intro, but really every show is a live edition now, or at least every Saturday. So, welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink. How's that? We have another wonderful guest tonight. Well, I say wonderful. We don't really know just yet. We're going to find out.
I'm
We'll
wonderful.
see what she brings. You're wonderful?
I'm wonderful.
Yes, tonight we have Stacey Smekofske, which is a mouthful. Did I get that right?
You totally did. You nailed it.
Yes, I love it. All right, and we're gonna get back to Stacey shortly here. But before we get going, Spilling Ink is brought to you by Book Branders, which is your self-publishing concierge. So we just wanted to give you a quick message from them. Book Branders provides package and a la carte. You know what? That word, Katie, kills me every time I read this. Package. What is it about the word package? Book Branders, you guys have to give me something easier than the word package. I obviously can't do it. They give you solutions to help you get your book to market. From book design to editing and marketing, their team of professionals can help you successfully bring your book to market, not with any packaging, thank goodness, without breaking the bank. You can contact Book Branders at bookbranders.com, and they'll even give you a free 10-step guide to successful self-publishing. And Katie, our lovely co-host in Las Vegas, where it is in the past, which still blows my mind, has done some work with Book Branders. Tell us a little bit more about Book Branders.
It's exactly as you advertised it. They put together the team of people to help you publish your book. So once you finish your manuscript and you're ready to bring it to the world, they provide the steps that you need in order to make it a saleable product. So your editing, your internal formatting, your ebook conversion, all of that, they have a team of people who can put all those things together for you.
And I have to say, I really love your background today. You've really stepped it up from what I usually see. This is lovely.
You do not want to see the rest of the room. Trust me.
All right. Well, we have a special solo guest with us tonight, which, we weren't going to tell her this, but does add a whole lot more pressure on her to really perform and stand out. How are you doing tonight, Stacey?
I've got this.
Yes.
Knuckle popping and everything. Yeah.
Stacey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, you nailed it. My name is Stacey Smekofske, and I am an editor and book coach for independent authors. I mainly focus on substantive and developmental editing, but I've been known to do copy editing, and then I was telling Katie earlier that I do some formatting, book formatting. I include that in my services, my package of, let's see, I can say package, Jason. I have a package of things that I can do for people. And so, that's, I focus on a lot of genres, but mainly I'm horror, fantasy, thriller, historical fiction, and lately I've been swimming in the nonfiction pool a little bit.
That's ridiculous. You don't want to get into nonfiction. Come on. That's real life. You're going to learn something if you get into nonfiction.
I know. It's terrible. But like I said, I picked up a really great author recently, and he's hilarious. And if somebody can make me laugh, then I'm in. So
okay. And is it true that you are married to your father?
No, actually, but my mother seems to think so. But no, I'm not. I'm married to a wonderful man. We've been married since 96, and he tolerates me very well.
Wow, 96. Holy cow.
Right? I know. Wow. I don't look that old, do I? Look at me.
You don't. You really don't, actually. You know what? And Katie, what I think it goes back to is this lower resolution on the webcams. I think it takes years off your life. I really think it does.
We're back to that again. Oh my goodness.
Seriously.
Speaking of how's the feed today, since that's what we've been complaining about lately. Any better now that I'm in the teenager's bedroom?
Yeah, you look fabulous, Katie. Stop it, Jason. You just stop it right now.
Well, you do look fabulous, Katie. You've got a little bit of a shadow down here. I don't know what's in front of your light, but I do see a little bit of a shadow.
Oh, that's probably because the light's actually behind the computer. So the webcam and everything is, it's blocking some of the light.
Yeah, I'm used to your light coming from over here. It's funny. I only see you one way.
Different room, different setup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Stacey, you do developmental edits.
Yeah.
And what other kind do you say?
Substantive. Yes. Yeah. Mostly that's like, the difference, right? So
well, I want you to explain the difference for us, because there's all sorts of, I mean, if you get onto a freelance editor's website, it's easy to get confused by all the options that are on there. So
right.
What is it exactly that you do?
Well, developmental and substantive are the same thing, essentially, only it just depends on where you're at in the process. So if an author is basically at the beginning and they haven't written their story yet, but they're trying to figure out how they want their story to develop, they would get with a developmental editor, and they would talk about how they want their story to flow and how they want their story to be paced, and what characters they want to work on, and what setting and plot and all that great stuff. And that's the developmental editor kind of helps them put all that together and help plan it. I work with them from the very beginning. Oftentimes that means sending me chapter by chapter by chapter, and we work. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. And then, the other type of editor, substantive, or substantive, or however people want to pronounce it, Dickinson.
That's a word like package. That's a hard word.
And that's a hard word, right? I don't see it. I just spell it. Anyway, so that is basically working it from the back end. So you finish your story and you're ready for somebody to make sure your pacing, your character development, your setting, and everything flows nice. That's where that editor sits in and goes in and basically tells you, take out that entire chapter. It sucks.
No, we hate that. We hate that.
I know, it really stinks. Yeah. But the beautiful thing about being an editor for indie authors, which is something that I really am passionate about, because a lot of times, you've got indie authors out there that, the last 10 years, it's been so, I don't know, fluid in how this industry works. But, it seems like in the last 10 years, you've got a lot of editors that have come in and said, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. But the problem is that this industry is shifting so much. And a lot of indie authors, they don't even think they have to have an editor anymore, because they think, well, it's, just use Grammarly. Well, that's the problem, is that editors, that's just a proofreader. And half the time that misses things. So, editors are not that. Editors are your best friend, and we help you get that thing so it's professional and it's polished and it looks fantastic and it's saleable. Because otherwise you've got a bunch of crap out there that just looks like it's been self-published. So
and I have a love-hate relationship with my editor.
You should.
I love my editor for 6 months out of the year. And then for that other 6 months when she's editing my books, I really hate her.
Yeah, that's the point. And this is the thing about editors and authors that we both need to have. We both need to have tough skins, because a lot of times my authors are the same way. They'll, there's times where I'll give an author a certain suggestion and they'll pretty much just no. Yeah. And I have to be able to chew on my tongue and say, okay, you're the boss.
Well, and it's a really strange thing to do, because when we hire an editor, we are hiring someone to beat us up. Right. And I think that's something that all of you out there should remember going into that one, you have to have that editor. Your book is going to look like crap without the editor. And two, they're going to beat you up. So be ready for it. They're doing it because they want your book to kick ass.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just...
Right.
Don't think of it as beating you up. Think of it as a learning experience, because if an editor gives you a suggestion, and let's say you don't agree with it because maybe you don't understand it, you can have that line of communication and learn the why behind why the suggestion was made. Really?
Well, and I think that's what's great about editors. And this is one thing I always tell authors is, look, when you're picking an editor, you really have to interview that editor and make sure that they're a good fit with you. You can't just hire any editor. Anybody out there that's listening and says, well, I like Stacey, I want to sit down and have her as an editor. They may sit down with me and absolutely hate me. And they may not like my personality, and my personality may not mesh with them. And I may not like their genre, or they may not like the way I edit. And that process is so individual and unique that it's really, really important that anytime an author picks an editor, that they get a chance to really talk to that person and get to know them and see if they're actually a good fit. Because it's just like Jason said, you're hiring somebody to kind of beat you up. And my approach, of course, is to not to beat you up. It's actually, I'm in your corner and I want your book to sell and I want you to succeed. And you're now my best friend. So I'm going to sit down and do my very best job to make sure that I tell you, look, you got some broccoli right here in your teeth and you got some toilet paper sticking out of your butt. And I'll tell you that because that's my job. That's what I got hired to do.
Now, with that in mind, we've got an audience question from actually one of our co-hosts for Spilling Ink. J.E. Taylor asks, have you ever made an author cry?
Yes.
Tell us about that experience.
We weren't talking about their book. We weren't talking about their book. He was actually asking about life advice. And I was pretty much ripping him up in one side and down the other and telling him to get his life on track. Yeah. So there are many times that an editor might become your life coach.
Well, now you have, every time you move your arms around, because you like to gesticulate a lot, you have some kind of like little musical sounds going on. What is that? What's happening?
Oh, I don't know. It might be my hair. I'll move my hair.
Oh, okay. No, I thought maybe you had like big bracelets on that were making this cool sound. It sounded nice.
I'm not cool enough to wear bracelets.
You know, I know the company you keep. Okay. And so I know that you're cool. And I also know that you might be a child of Satan based on the kind of people you hang out with.
Now, look, if you're referring to Mr. Tim Chismar, I don't look at like Tim Chismar is a great guy, but we don't hang. That boy, I mean, we've hung, but we don't hang on the reg. And honestly,
but is he hung?
I don't know, and I haven't asked, and I don't think I'll ever ask.
Do we have a timer going on how quickly Jason derailed the conversation? I mean, I think
this is not a record. This is 14 minutes. That's not a record. But
we're totally Dickinsonian this whole conversation.
Okay, let's ask Jason how he pronounces it.
Yeah,
what?
How do you pronounce it?
What? How do I pronounce what?
The age of
you
Charles.
Can't say it. Yeah.
I totally missed whatever word that I'm supposed to be saying.
You're gonna have to.
There's a word for the age of Charles Dickens.
Oh, Dickinsonian?
Dickensian.
Dickensian. Okay.
My way, kid. I'm so happy. You said it.
Dickensian. Well, Dickensian's cool too. That's not how it's spelled, though. It's spelled Dickinsonian.
I prefer Dickinsonian, people.
All right, we'll ask the audience. You guys in the live chat over there, vote in. Is it Dickensian or Dickinsonian?
And what Katie is referring to is things that are of or about Charles Dickens.
Oh, Jason. You took away the fun.
Question.
All right. So before we went on air, Stacey and I were having this really in-depth, hard-hitting conversation about how she wants to make her voice sound sexier, and produce some YouTube videos, which I think is a good idea. And she just needs a good mic and she can do that. But you were saying that one of your problems in creating content is that you're kind of sporadic on it. You'll go through phases. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have been doing a lot of research on good ways to produce podcasts since I'm going to be producing a new one soon. And kind of the consensus amongst the people who are in the know is to do podcasts in seasons. So rather than recording every week for a year, depending on your subject matter, record 15 shows in a month or two when you're feeling inspired, and then release those on whatever schedule you want. So that way you're not having to commit yourself every week, but rather producing the content ahead of time.
That's a really good idea, Jason.
I know. Coming from the mouth of the sexiest man in Holland.
Yeah. Yeah. From behind the mic, the man behind the mic.
You do have a good radio voice, Jason. Yeah.
It's working for you. Good
Yeah,
job.
it works.
I'm
All
still
you need now
taking.
is a foreign accent to go with it, and then boom, done.
Holy shit, Katie! If I could rock like a Scottish accent or an Australian accent, holy shit!
You know
I'd be amazing.
That's actually how I started listening to Joanna Penn.
Yeah, I love her.
I can listen to that woman for hours.
Yep.
Just I mean, that woman can put me to sleep faster than, but it's her voice is just sexy. Like I'll just keep talking, Joanna.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even need a picture of her. Just just have her keep talking.
No, just keep talking.
Yep. Katie, maybe you could work on that.
I don't do accents though.
I didn't do accents either.
Well, you know someone else who is sexy, and I don't know if he's still watching, but he's not still watching. Darn it. I thought maybe JD was on. He's my crush.
Oh,
he backed out.
JD Estrada. That's a sexy dude right there. I got to have him read some poetry next time he comes on.
Oh, there you go. See, now he can do the rolling R's too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I bet he could for sure. I like it. So, Stacey. Yeah, you know what? Before I got distracted by the Dickinsonian, I had this great thing that I wanted to talk about, and now I completely lost it. I have no idea what I was going to talk about.
Oh, swell.
I know, right?
Some host you are.
Alas.
Oh my goodness, look at you.
Okay, so
Dickinsonian talk.
Wait, Katie, you got to say something, otherwise we can't see the screen.
That was a visual cue for you.
She's talking about her book. She got on the Christmas Carol book.
To remind you of what the show is supposed to be this week.
Oh, yes. All right. So our Dickinsonian show. So Charles Dickens wrote that movie, was it Scrooged, wasn't it, with Bill Murray?
That's a great adaptation. That is one of
a great adaptation.
We watch that every year.
That's such a funny movie. All right, so of course, based on A Christmas Carol, and Katie told me I had to watch The Man Who Invented Christmas. And so last night I finally watched it, and it was fantastic. I really loved it. But Katie, why don't you tell our guest why you recommended that movie to me?
Okay. So I'm a fan of a lot of Charles Dickens stories, and A Christmas Carol has always been my favorite. I watch every single version of it, including Scrooged, The Muppet Christmas Carol, which is the all-time best version, and nobody can argue against that. And so last year, I guess this movie had come out, and I don't know why I didn't hear about it. I'm really surprised because it's like right up my alley. So as I'm watching podcasts, or not podcasts, I'm watching YouTube channels, and people were reviewing movies. That one popped up, The Man Who Invented Christmas. And I thought, well, this sounds something like I should have been watching it. It sounds really interesting. Come to find out, it's the story behind the story of A Christmas Carol, fictionalized, of course, but it really embodies the spirit of what being an author is like, from the characters not cooperating to the characters taunting you to writing through writer's block. And it really gives a good visual of all of this, as well as telling the story of A Christmas Carol. So I've watched it maybe 100 times already. And I've been telling everyone, including Jason, you have to watch this. You have to watch this. You'll really like it. So Jason, tell us what you thought about it.
Well, I thought it was fantastic. But for one, I'd like to start out by saying, going into that movie, I was thinking, man, if only he had Stacey Smekofske, his shit would have been ironed out. I mean, he wouldn't have had any of these problems he had. He just needed a good developmental and substantive editor.
See, it's all in the package.
That's all he needed. But no, that was it. That was a really great movie. And it was kind of one of those where you watch it, and as you're watching this story unfold, that you already know the story. I mean, everyone's read it or seen a movie based on A Christmas Carol, and you're also watching his own story unfold, and watching his own arc go through the motions. And I was so excited by the end, like, oh my God, it's all coming together, and you see how writing this story is changing his life. And I think that that was such a cool and powerful thing for this movie to illustrate, because when we write a book, sometimes they do change our lives, and we have no idea how that's going to happen when we get started. But by the end, we might not be the same people at all. And so it was really cool, and it was what, PG 13, something like that, so it's safe for the whole family to watch. But man, that was a really cool story. If you like Christmas, if you like love and joy and hope, if you're not a terrible person, you should probably watch it. It was a good movie.
Wait, so if
Yeah.
you are a terrible person, you shouldn't watch it, or if you don't
No,
watch it, you're a terrible person?
no, if you're a terrible person, don't watch it. Just head out to the desert out in Nevada, and just live out there.
One of my favorite parts of that movie, and I don't want to give away spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it's kind of the whole beta reader thing where he was giving some readings to his the lady who's the nanny,
Yeah,
essentially.
Tara.
She's like, he can't do that. He's got to change. He's not that bad. And you can see, like, in
That
his
was the
eyes,
best.
like, this is my story. This is my character. But as the audience, you're like, she's right. You have to change it. There's that developmental editor, or, that beta reader helping out. And it's fun to see both sides of it.
Yeah. In fact, I haven't seen it yet. I'm totally psyched now because I want to go see it now. But one of the things that I love to tell people all the time before they give over their stuff to an editor, don't waste your money unless you've had this read by some beta readers. You're wasting your money, because now I'm your first contact, and now I'm your beta reader, and now you're paying me when you could have had free beta readers come back and say, hey, don't do that. He's not a bad guy. Don't kill that guy. Kill this one. That kind of thing. Yeah.
What makes it funny too is if you've read the story, or even if you watch the movies, at the very end, the last stave, as they call it, where he says, "And Tiny Tim, who did not die," you can almost see it in big bold letters, because it's basically what the beta readers were saying to him, or the people he was showing bits and pieces of his book to about Tiny Tim. And you can almost hear that shouting at that point, who did not die? See?
And so I'm of the opinion, though, looking at this story, that maybe Tiny Tim should have died, and then Scrooge goes and digs him up, and he masters chemistry and electricity, and he reanimates Tiny Tim's body without the limp and without the illnesses.
He
And
writes
becomes an immortal.
Mary Shelley, and Mary Shelley comes in and she helps him like develop the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see how that would work.
Isn't this public domain now? You could write your own adaptation of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, what was that? 1860s something?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
public domain for sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So there's your
adaptation, Jason.
I wanted to do an adaptation of Phantom of the Opera that included zero singing. So I
don't know if that's old enough.
It's not quite old enough yet. It's close, but
yeah.
So that might be in the works for a few years here. But it's such a popular story, and really the story is cool. It's just the singing that makes it terrible.
Well, that's one man's opinion, Jason.
You look like you're a musical kind of gal.
I am, actually. I hate to admit it.
That's all right. My wife is too. I know the look.
I know the look. Myself.
It's a t-shirt with cardigan over top. That's a musical girl.
Yeah, and it depends on the musical, and it depends on my mood. So I have to say that. But yeah, because I'm not always a grease lightning kind of girl. I have to be in a mood. And John Travolta, yeah, it's just weird. It has to,
A musical has to have good musical numbers. You don't have to sing every single part.
Right.
Like Les Mis. Oh my God. They wrecked that one.
Oh my gosh. My favorite version of that is the Liam Neeson version that's not the musical.
Yeah.
I'll watch that up one side and down the other. But it's only because I've read the book and I can't the singing messes it up.
What one are you talking about?
Les Miserables.
Oh, okay. And see, and I haven't seen nor heard that. I know my wife has gone and seen the production a couple times, but yeah, I haven't seen that at all. She described it to me to try to convince me to go. And I was like, Jesus, it sounds like I'm going to sit there for 2.5 hours and be depressed out of my mind. No,
You
no,
will.
thanks. I'm good.
You will.
Pretty much. Yeah, that does sum it up well.
Yeah, that is pretty much what it is. But, you know, I don't know. I guess it depends on what genre you're into. If you're into being depressed, then there you go.
Hey, it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's
So
for sure.
I was in your bio that you sent over to us. You know, I read through that, Stacey, and it sounds like you're actually really smart.
Yeah, I am. I'm really smart.
So how did you get into the world of editing?
Oh, that is a funny story. No, I don't know. Okay, so
It better be. We're counting on it.
Yeah, I've been editing for a long time for free. About 5 years ago, my best friend and I were living a healthier life, and we were walking around a track, you know, because we thought we were the shit, you know, we're gonna be healthy, and we're trekking around the track, and she decides she wants to go back to school, and she doesn't want to go alone because she's that kind of girl. And so she's the kind that takes you to the bathroom with her, you know, like, come with me to the bathroom. You know, that's the way she is. So she's like, come with me back to school. We're going to go to college. And I knew I was going to go back and get my degree, but I didn't know, I wasn't ready. I'm one of those homeschooling moms, although my children are well adjusted. They're not weird. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. But yeah,
it's actually more popular now than regular school.
Yeah.
Using that route because you
And
can control what you teach your kids.
Yeah, and I'm a hipster. You know, I'm a hip mom, and so I'm one of those moms that just don't. I don't know. Anyway, we're not going to go there. But
Wait.
Yeah,
Are you a hipster or a hippie or a hippie? There's a lot of different stuff going on here.
I'm all three, but it depends on the day of the week. So, but this day I was a hipster, and we were walking, and so she talked me into it, and we went back to school together. And while, you know, you're taking those foundation classes all over again, I kind of just pretended like I'd never been to school before. And so I kind of started fresh and didn't claim any of my previous credits and started all over again. And those foundation courses, they tend to ask you, you know, I was the old lady in the class. So they were asking everybody, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm sitting there going, what do I want to be when I grow up? The 40-year-old old lady in the room, you know? So I'm like, I don't know. And it's just about this time that my bestie kind of looked at me and she says, you know, you've been editing and you love reading. Why don't you just take on the role? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably dig in. So I just kind of took on that idea. And so I started following a bunch of editor blogs and figuring out what the path was for editors and what kind of editor I wanted to be, if I wanted to go work for a publishing house or if I wanted to, you know, work for a newspaper, you know, work for, you know, I don't know, be a journalist, or I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I started exploring all the different things. And one of the things that I noticed is across the board, most editors out there, they all kind of regret getting an English degree. They all wish they would have gotten a communications degree instead. And I thought, well, maybe that I'll just take the road less traveled and see what kind of path this takes me on. And I absolutely enjoyed it. It took me down a path where I learned business, and I learned about journalism, and I learned about copyright law, and I studied things that I wouldn't have normally studied in an English degree. You know what I mean? Like English, you're doing the literature and the stuff that